Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And in this one, I will be giving my final analysis, my final prediction for 10.2 and PvP and how powerful you should expect the specializations to be on launch and release, as the servers are currently down right now. This is going to be a great tier list for you to try and select which specialization is going to be best suited for you and what you're trying to do in terms of your own personal success and goals. And if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. But let's get started. We got a lot of specializations to cover. Affliction Warlock. Now, Affliction Warlock was ending up decent towards the end of 10.1.7 and is receiving a significant amount of buffs, with its tankiness going up about 10% damage reduction towards physical damage, with demon armor returning, and more ease of global cooldowns to apply its dots. Now, I'm expecting this to be the best battleground specialization, but in Arena, I think it's likely going to still have some difficulty, especially with things like Havoc Demon Hunter and Windwalker specifically. Now, I do think it's going to be way better than 10.1.7, so I'm giving it an A on this ultimate prediction for its viability in competitive PvP. Arcane Mage. Arcane Mage is about where it is right now. Currently, it's not really changing too much. We saw a lot of players towards the end of 10.1.7 opting for Fire in ranked 3s, but then Arcane was succeeding more so in solo shuffle. So I think with this specialization, it really depends on what bracket you want to go for. If you're doing a lot of solo shuffle, Arcane is likely going to be kind of the go-to for you. But if you're doing a lot of ranked 3s, Arcane is still good, but within the scope of Rogue Mage, which is likely going to be one of the best comps in the game, you're probably going to want to be Fire. Arcane is probably going to come in at a solid A. I think having one school of magic will make it a lot more difficult, obviously, than other specializations. Not as beginner friendly, for at least to say. Arms Warrior, this is going to be on S tier, easily going to be on S tier. It's going to be doing a monstrous amount of damage with the buffs that it is getting. And now with Safeguard returning, this was a mechanic in Shadowlands that made Arms Warrior the most dominant melee DPS in Season 1, that it was pretty much the only class even selected as a melee role. And it's an even stronger version of that mechanic that existed back then. So with no doubt, Arms Warrior is going to be absolutely a monster. Assassination Rogue is significantly better than 10.1.7, and I mean specifically speaking to its damage profile. Now, its ability to lock down multiple targets, it's probably going to be a bit weaker. Also, things like Warrior intervening to redirect damage on kidney shots is going to be really tough to deal with. And also, Augmentation Evoker is likely going to still be very popular. And because of that, they're going to be able to remove bleed effects. But I think that it is going to be a lot better. I'm giving it a little bit of a higher ranking. This is a bit of a bump up than I had previously given. This is kind of a final prediction, right? We're trying to allot things. I think it's going to feel very strong on this patch. Balance Druid, I think, is going to come in probably around S tier. I think that Cyclone is still the most powerful crowd control effect in the game, and because of that, it's going to be utilized really heavily. Also, Havoc Demon Hunter is one of its most common pairings, and Elemental Shamans for ranked 3s are really powerful at the moment, so your comps are looking strong, and you're just about in the same position as you were the last patch. So in the hands of the most skilled players, Balance Druid is absolutely going to pop off. Beast Mastery Hunter, the main problem with this class is that your damage was just really not there in 10.1.7, but in 10.2, when you get the set bonuses, which maybe we should take into consideration as well, without set bonuses, Beast Mastery Hunter is probably going to feel not so great. This is the tough part about making a prediction tier list now that I'm considering this, is that week 1, you will not have your set bonuses. And some of these classes, Beast Mastery would be one of them, are not going to feel good without them. So this is going to be a bit of a caveat for anybody that's interested in playing Beast Mastery Hunter. It's going to take a bit of a curve. You're going to need to unlock your gear before you really start feeling the power. So I'm giving it a little bit of a lower ranking because of that. But as you move in and get your set bonuses, it's easily like a really high B. You're leading into an A. Blood Death Knight, you actually are getting damage buffs, but I don't really know. I'm probably going to put you on like a C. I'm kind of doubting that you're going to be too good in the battleground scenario compared to some other tanks. Brewmaster Monk, same type of deal. For the tank specializations, it's just your damage profile is much lower, but actually Brewmaster, if we're comparing tank to tank, is probably better than than Blood DK, as I've seen them a few times at pretty high rating in solo shuffle. So I'll give it a bit of a higher ranking than Blood. Maybe even Blood is even lower. Demonology Warlock, now this class is going to be absolutely sick. You're going to have so much damage. Your Vile Fiend AoE talent is super powerful. They're buffing Pit Lord to be a ranged class now, so it can connect damage. They're taking damage out of your Tyrant and putting it into your other demons, which is going to feel really good. I think Demonology could easily be an S tier specialization moving forward onto this patch. Destruction Warlock, same type of deal with the armor buffs, your damage profile. Although much like Beast Mastery, I think Destruction is likely going to feel better as you unlock your set bonuses. So early on, it's probably going to feel decent, but you're going to really need to wait until your item levels start to get higher to notice its full effect. But once you get your set bonuses and you're proccing your little portals with your Immolite ticks, I think it's going to feel really strong. Devastation Evoker, it's probably going to feel about in the mid here. I think that it's, a decent caster, pretty beginner friendly caster if you want to play it, but it's capped out end point, especially with things like Rogue being so powerful. I don't think it has the durability to survive Subtlety Rogue in this patch with how it currently is. And it does pretty poorly into range classes, which as we can see are all doing really well. So Devastation is not really being set up for success at the moment. Discipline Priest, it's getting a complete rework in this patch, reducing the keybinds, making it really easy and nice to play. I'm a bit worried that it's not going to compete with Resto Druid, so I'm bringing it down onto A tier, but I think it's going to be really fun. I just got Obsidian Legend, I believe, from last season. If you missed my stream, it's linked in the description down below. Pushed rank 1 in Solo Shuffle on Disc and Boomkin. It's just so much fun. It's just the most fun healer to play. So even if it's not better than Druid, I'm still going to play it just because it's so much better or so much more fun. Elemental Shaman, this is a tough one for me. Its set bonus has recently just got nerfed, but it's so easy to get maximum damage out on that I think it's got to be high ranked. Also, we saw at BlizzCon in the Guild Clash that a lot of the most competitive teams in the game said whoever has the best Ellie wins, and Ellie's going to be in pretty much the same position, and I can see where they're going when they're talking about this. Also, Ellie with Boomkin, Ellie with Warrior, Ellie with Warlock, like those are all like some of the most common elemental comps, and they're going to be really strong. Enhancement Shaman, this is a tough one. I'm tempted to put it on B tier, but again, Warrior is so good, and you're typically insanely good with Warriors. So as long as you play with a Warrior in threes, I think you're going to do really well. But in Solo Shuffle, with how good all these casters are, it's probably still better than Devastation, though, and better. Well, I guess we're comparing melee. I think it'll probably end up being about an A tier. You just got to make sure you've got a Warrior on your team. Now in Battlegrounds, it's probably more like a C tier. I think it's probably not really that good. But this is looking at the competitive modes of the game with rating. Feral Druid, it's about the same with a little bit of extra damage added onto your bleeds and your ferocious bite, giving a little bit more bite. Here for 10.2, where do I want to put Feral? I feel like Feral, honestly, it's underrated, but its main drawback is its tankiness. But I know I could see like Feral Warrior being really nasty and Warlock Feral being really nasty, like Destro Feral, or even this is a really tough one, man. I'm throwing it into the A tier just because it's really tough to splinter it off. I don't think it's a B, man. Spamming clone and being aggressive, like your squishiness is really compensated for that if you're able to get cyclones and kite around the map and abuse your mobility. Now, Fire Mage is probably going to be strong, but I think that it's only strong because Subtlety Rogue is so strong in rank 3s. And then in Solo Shuffle, I think it's going to have a much harder time being Glass Cannon with how strong Hunters are, like all 3 specs of them. I'm kind of doubting that it's going to be too strong. So this is a weird one where because of its synergy with its classes, it's God tier in 3s. But you have to play that composition. And I think in Solo Shuffle, it's not going to be that good. So I'm throwing it down here. It's probably the best of the B tier, I would say. But I think you're gonna notice it when you start seeing a lot of these range classes, which we haven't really even gotten to yet. Now, Frost Mage, this is probably going to be interesting to see because if Warriors are this good, Frost Mage is likely going to be one of the best specs that you could queue into the game to fight them. And Arms Warrior's already baseline popularity is really high, and it's likely been predicted to be really strong by a lot of content creators. So it's going to be really high population, which means Frost Mage will likely do really well. But Frost Mage doesn't do too well into Ellies or Demos, although it likes to play with Demos or Hunters. So it might counterbalance it out. Its set bonuses are not that great. I'm putting it here above Fire Mage. If you look left to right, that basically means I think that Affliction is better than Arcane, or Assassination is better than Enhancement Shaman. Probably Feral Druid is better than Enhance. So if we're going from left to right in terms of strength, maybe we should reorganize this. I'm not sure if I think Boomkin is better than Destro. Without set bonuses, it probably is, though. Frost Death Knight. I'm sorry, guys, but it's going to kill Resto Shamans, but Resto Shamans aren't good. So yeah, Frost Decay, I don't see it. I'm really hoping this spec gets a rework similar to Ret Paladins in the near future because it just seems a little bit dated. It's been the same build for like 3 or 4 years. So hopefully it gets a little bit of love, and just competitively, I don't see it working out. Fury Warrior, this guy is scary, man. I'm slapping this guy up onto the S tier. It's a good patch to be a warrior. But this is much similarly to Destro, going to power up as you get your set bonuses. I think initially it probably isn't going to be better than arms, but as you unlock your 4-piece, you're going to jump past arms really quickly. So right now it's a little bit lower than arms warrior, but wait till you get those set bonuses. It's going to be worth the investment at that point. Guardian Druid, again, probably one of the better tanks. Putting you up here with Brewmaster. Especially for Battlegrounds. If you're doing Battlegrounds, you got to be a Guardian Druid. Havoc Demon Hunter. Now, this is a tough one. I'm putting it in the number 1 position over Warrior, which I'm probably going to come back to regret. But with a 2-minute cooldown Metamorphosis, again, this is maybe before it's set bonuses, it's not. This is another spec where as you get your set bonuses, you just skyrocket beyond everybody else. And that's because your Blade Dance is going to shoot out Throw Glaives and applying magic damage increasing effects through PvP talents. And you're going to be doing likely more than top damage than any other class in the game. But I think before you get your set bonuses, that arms is likely going to feel a little bit stronger. So do remember that when you're thinking about the curve, is that if initially this doesn't feel that good, it's just because you haven't gotten to the gear point. Holy Priest, I think it's probably going to feel as strong as it is currently. Not really a lot going on for it. A couple of rearrangements. Its direct healing get a little bit of buff, but also its cooldown reduction getting nerfed. Probably going to feel about the same. It's going to be really broken in Rogue Mage Priest. Probably the best healer in 3s in that comp because of the range stun chastise. So do note that. But as a standalone, if you want to flex between multiple modes of content, it's going to feel a bit weaker than Druid likely and have a little bit less options than Druid. And I think Disc is more fun, but Holy is definitely up there in terms of fun. Holy Paladin, I think if you're a Holy Paladin main, you're probably gonna be able to make it work. But this guy got targeted for a lot of nerfs, likely from Mythic Plus. I think your mana regen is going to be one of your main problems, and with Resto Druid being so good, it's going to be probably limitless mana with how much time you're spending in tree form. I really doubt you're going to be able to compete with them, and it's tough to crowd control druids with like Hodge, Repentance, and stuff like that. So yeah, I think Holy Paladin is likely going to be struggling. I think it's going to be superseded by the pre-specs and in the strong comps for 3s, so it's going to be a rough patch for Holy Paladin. Marksmanship Hunter, this guy is just so broken. I'm putting him above Boomkin. Marksmanship Hunter is just beyond broken, and when you get your set bonuses on this patch, it's going to be above and beyond that to infinity and beyond that. So it's good at the start, and it's going to be even more good after you unlock that stuff. This is absolutely disgusting spec, and it's going to smash all the content in PvP for sure. Mistweaver Monk, I'm putting this up onto the S tier. Doesn't mean that I think like it's equal with Resto Druid again. If we go left to right, it means that this on the left is better than Moonkin, better than this. Okay, we're moving left to right. Outlaw Rogue, I'm sorry guys, but this is just not the patch. They removed Find Weakness, which is your only way to do damage to high armor targets. While they have increased quality of life for Outlaw Rogue's rotation and reduce some of their keybinds, your damage output is just not going to be there to compete, and you're not Subtlety Rogue. Subtlety Rogue is going to be a monster. Acid Rogue's damage is significantly higher than yours. I just don't see an environment where you're going to be better than those, at least when it comes to ladder play. Now, in tournament play, you saw some players picking it up, but also in tournament, you can get embellishments, and the main embellishment, Fangs of Adornment, is getting nerfed. So, on the tournament run where they can easily access that one, which is not that easy on live with all the PvE you have to do to get it, and it got nerfed now on this patch. I'm kind of doubting that Outlaw Rogue ends up staying, even in tournament play, where it was compared to Subtlety or even potentially even Assassination. I think it's going to fall off pretty hard. Preservation Evoker, now, because Assassination Rogue is going to be pretty good, I think Preservation could be strong, but I don't think it's going to compete with Druids. This is a really tough one because I don't think it's like horribly weak. I'm going to put it up on the A tier. I don't think that it's horribly weak, but it has weaknesses. So things like Root Beam and getting crowd controlled. But although Mage might not be, if it's a Rogue Mage meta, you're going to feel pretty bad on Prez in 3s, honestly. But maybe with a Warrior, with double Intervene and things like that, maybe you're not going to be feeling that bad. So this one's a bit tougher to predict. Prot Warrior, you're probably actually going to be pretty decent. I think you're going to get a significant damage buff moving forward into this patch, so probably going to be a little bit more viable than in the past. Prot Paladin, really tough to rank because again, in Solo Shuffle you only fight other Prot Paladins. It's probably Sleeper, but Rep Paladin is usually so insanely good that nobody even really tries to check out Prot Paladin to see how good it is. So I'm putting it kind of in the middle here. It likely is actually good, but everybody will just prefer to play Ret with how powerful it is. Restoration Shaman, I think you're going to notice a significant drop off in strength, especially because you're not starting with the set bonuses that buff your Riptide. Prior to that point, you're going to feel really weak compared to every other healer. Putting you a little bit ahead of Paladin though, mostly because I think your mana is going to be better, so you can play for later games than Paladin can in that situation. But you're pretty close in terms of comparison. Resto Druid, this is the best healer in the game. I should have put a God tier. Resto Druid is just disgusting. You're just going to be in tree form the entire game, summoning extra little trees that keep healing for you. And while you're in tree, you get Omen of Clarity procs, which make your regrowth free, so you're not going to spend mana summoning infinite armies of healing trees. It's going to be absolutely disgusting. So, yeah, I probably should have put a god tier on this tier list. Resto Druid's so gross. Retribution Paladin, I'm putting this up onto S tier. I think that it's one of the best specs in the game, as we saw towards the end of 10.1.7. Your new set bonuses are just going to make you do a little bit more extra damage on top of that. It's mostly the 1 minute cooldown Blessing of Sacrifice that makes it so powerful. So you can rotate with the Resto Druid every minute. It's like WAD Turbo enhanced beyond, with how many defensive cooldowns you can use to stop incoming burst damage on yourself. And it's probably one of the best synergized specs with a Warrior. So there's no way you're ever losing to a Rogue Mage with these intervene talents coming through, I don't think, on 10.2. Ret Paladin is absolutely going to smash it. Shadow Priest. This one might be underrated. I'm going to be putting it here under the A tier. I think that Assassination Rogue and Shadow Priest, I saw a couple teams playing at the end of last season, actually getting into rank 1 range playing it, and that's when Asa Rogue was terrible. That was when it was completely terrible, and they were getting into rank 1 range with it. So this comp is like 3 times better than it was then, so it could easily be A or S. So Shadow Priest, I'm putting in, the highest of the A tier specializations. Subtlety Rogue, again, I probably should have made a god tier for this one. I think that Subtlety Rogue is the best melee DPS currently in 10.2. It's just going to do unhealable, ungodly amounts of burst damage, so much so that I'm not even sure the warrior talents are going to be enough to negate and block it. Subtlety Rogue is going to be an absolute monster. So even despite its partner, Fire Mage, likely its most common partner, Fire Mage, being B tier as a standalone, when they come together, oh my god, it's going to be absolutely gross. Although potentially some other options, maybe Destro, Subtlety or something ends up being good as well, with when it gets its set bonuses, or even Balanced Druid. Survival Hunter, definitely an underrated specialization. I think this is one where when you get your set bonuses, you're going to feel strong. Also, Mending Bandage, if Asa Rogue ends up being in a decent spot, is going to put it in a good spot as well. But Subtlety Rogue Survival being a really good comp is going to be one of the main reasons why it could be good. And Ret Paladin Survival, kind of the sidekick to these S tier specializations. But it's definitely underrated. I think it's a lot of fun. I played the 2400 Solo Shuffle Challenge on it and actually really liked it. So definitely would recommend it for 10.2. Unholy Death Knight, I'm not really sold on it. I don't know. This is one of the things where, like, if you play with the Augmentation Evoker, I think it's really good. But with how prominent casters are, I think it's probably going to feel like a mid-A. So from left to right, mid-A tier for the melee DPS. You need burst damage. If you're in S tier, it's because you have something that bursts, whether it's the Hunt or 200k MS hit or a Secret Technique or Eviscerate or Odin's Fury from Fury Warrior. You got something that can hit somebody for like almost half their health. And then if you don't have that, you're probably going to feel more like an A tier. Or if you only have the burst and no sustain, then you're going to feel like an A tier. You're missing one of those components. These classes have like good sustain and like a couple of moments in the game where they're hitting high burst. I feel like Unholy doesn't really have the high burst moment. Vengeance Demon Hunter, this is honestly, actually, I'm putting it as an A tier tank. It's got so much crowd control and the sigil buffs to its talent tree. It's like practically no cooldown on a lot of its sigils now. And it's like unkillable beyond belief, and its damage got buffed. So Vengeance Demon Hunter is going to be the craziest tank for sure. Windwalker Monk, you're basically just going to be about where you are now, which is really good. But Subtlety Rogues are also really good. So this is a tough one. I'm gonna put it in S tier, but it's like towards the bottom of S tier. And you can see there's a lot of really good specializations in this patch. Like you're not really gonna go terribly wrong with this one. Augmentation Evoker, it's slightly weaker in the first week when you're keeping your current set bonuses. It's still going to have that, but its new set bonuses are definitely weaker. You're probably not even going to run any of its set bonuses, so you don't have really anything to look forward to in that regard. But it's still just so strong. It's just going to buff its allies so much. So like I could see like Fury Warrior, Arms Warrior, Aug being absolutely disgusting, or Demon Hunter Aug being beyond disgusting. And with a Fistweaver Monk, don't get me started. So Augmentation Evoker here, I'm putting it actually a little bit under MM Hunter. I think MM Hunter is just absolutely gross. So do note that with this tier list, if you're jumping to this point into the video, you definitely want to go back and watch the commentary, because a lot of things might not make sense. Things like Fire Mage, for example, in PvP, I think are going to be really good with Subtlety Rogue and things like Rogue Mage. And then Beast Mastery Hunter, as it gets its set bonuses unlocked, is probably going to jump up to A tier. But I'm going to keep this tier list ongoing and updated. So again, hit the subscribe button so you're never missing those, so you can see how your specialization is doing moving forward throughout 10.2 and into the future, which looks looks really good for WoW, and I'm going to be covering a lot of that BlizzCon content here as well. So thank you very much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed the tier list, and this has got your eyes going for the next patch. You can see that there's not really a lot of specs where you can go wrong with this patch. They've done a pretty good job of making everybody feel like they've got something really crazy. It's going to be the wild, wild west for this first week, but that means there's also going to be a huge whirlwind of changes, I would expect. So this list is going to be changing, I would think, pretty quickly. So if you don't want to miss those changes, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.